neurotypical people are very weird. Everybody's very weird. I'm fascinated by why people do what they do.
Like, I spent time picking out this gift of words for you.
Yep.
I've chosen them so carefully and accurately to convey to you the thing. And you're like, it's basically like they took the gift and they're like, I'm going to throw this gift away and look for the secret instruction manual. And you're like, I gave you the manual. I just handed it to you. You threw it in the trash.
I've studied classical rhetoric. Is that I can read Latin. I can't read a room.
Two and a half years ago, I moved to Serbia, where there's a greater cultural tolerance. The psychiatric establishment doesn't really believe in ADHD.
Interesting.
Which means the same amount of people with ADHD are running around just unmedicated. And so there's a greater tolerance for unmedicated ADHD antics. And if anything does strike them as weird, they either write it off as, oh, artist, creative person, or maybe it's an American thing.
I mean, no villain, being in a country different to the one you were born in, it's very useful for me being in America, because like Americans just think this is how British people are when they meet you. It's not.
You're like, I've skewed your sample.
The jig is up as soon as there are more than one. As soon as there's more than one British person in a room.
Yes. And there's also, in some ways, I was thinking about how it intersects with gender, that there are things that I do that I'm sure would be unacceptable were I coded as male and vice versa.
100%.
And like, especially I would say like my ADHD traits are way more acceptable as like femme traits for the most part. Whereas like, as we were talking about earlier, like my either disregard for hierarchy or my blindness to hierarchy. And I have learned also that when you ask questions for more information, but are disregarding hierarchy, that can be seen as challenging someone's position of power, which I did not understand, because I would ask what I thought was an informationally based question. And sometimes people would get very upset with me for like asking this question. And I'm like, what is happening here? I feel like we're speaking two different languages. And it's because we are.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is, what are the details of my insurance plan? And what they're hearing is, you believe me to be an idiot who does not know how to run an insurance plan.
Right.
And I'm like, I have no opinion of your level of competency. It is actually not relevant to me whatsoever. I just am seeking information. And like,
simply seeking information is something I need on a t-shirt, I think.
The other benefit of switching countries is people assume that you simply don't understand how things work here. Even though the reality is I simply don't understand how this works anywhere.
Yep.
But because they think it's a geographic issue, they're very happy to explain it to you like you have no idea what's going on, which is the reality. Yeah.
And actually, I was talking to Pam about this earlier. Over COVID, I was outside of the UK for 2.5 years, and it was only when I got back that I noticed so many little bits of social nuance that I'd just swum in before. And I finally realized why people think I'm posher than I am, because I accidentally break all these little social rules all the time. And that's the way in the UK in particular that you signal social class. I break these social rules because I don't know that they are there, or they seem stupid to me.
That part.
Yeah.
That I was on another pod, and I was talking about that there are some social cues that I would say I occasionally will miss one, but for the most part, it's just that I think they're dumb, so I don't do them. I'm like, play stupid game, win stupid prize, does not want.
Also, like you were both saying about gender roles. Sorry, sometimes like, you were talking about how some ways you behave might come across differently if you were gendered male. And there are sometimes, I've got a reputation as a huge feminist, and I've only noticed recently that there are some things some things I do come across or have come across as just incredibly brave and ballsy feminists things, and I've just done them because I didn't know I was brave to, like, of course I'll speak my mind because I I'm correct about something and people need to know. You know, it's
that
not
part.
just, it doesn't take a bit. I only know that I've done an incredibly brave gender thing when people go, oh my God, you're so brave. Like, I would never say something like that. And I'm like, oh fuck.
You're like, what did I say this time?
Oh no. Or like, I don't really have a problem like standing up for myself in group discussions. Like I just don't. And it's not like the other things that are completely intuitive to other people I have a huge problem with. But yeah, I remember in an internship I did at the independent newspaper, I was a couple of the boys who were doing the internship had gone straight onto the news desk and they asked me to do a bunch of photocopying, which I have ADHD. I hate photocopying.
Yeah,
anyway.
I was like, what? Why would they give you photocopying?
And actually, so I came back at lunchtime and I explained to the person in charge of me, and I just said very matter of fact, look, like, I'll photocopy if you want me to, but honestly, I just think it's a waste of time for both of us here. Like, it's not going to get done properly. And I'm not going to learn anything. You're not going to get your photocopying done. So maybe I should just go and do the news desk. And they just put me on the news desk. And looking back, this probably seemed like an incredibly ballsy thing. But I was just like, this is inefficient. This is an inefficient allocation of people.
Right.
Nobody's having a good time here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
After my first paid writing gig, which was The Guardian, Vice reached out to ask. Remember Vice? They were terrible.
Oh my God, yes.
But they reached out to ask if they could interview me, and I was like, I mean, I started writing because I got tired of interviewers asking the wrong questions, and I think it would make more sense for you to let me just write what I would like to say. And they were like,
brilliant.
Okay. Balls.
Yes.
Great.
That's and that's the stuff that ends up being coded in some ways. Like I was told when I was younger, how strange it was that I, quote, acted like one of the guys, and I give big bunny air quotes for that, because of my directness in these ways, and it would confuse people because they're like, oh, but you're a puffball of hair and boobs. We were not expecting this.
The socialization, by definition, the socialization does not come inbred. Like,
no.
I don't know if you two have experienced this, but I do. I think it can go either way. But sometimes, in the same way that a lot of the sexist socialization just didn't take on me, some of the most genuinely non-sexist men I have ever met are people who are profoundly autistic because the misogynist socialization didn't take, because a lot of the socialization didn't take. I think it can very much go either way.
Yes. I was going to say that in some ways it's almost like when people are just like, oh, I was immune to peer pressure because I'm autistic.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of like, if it doesn't make sense in my internal schema, I'm not going to do it. If it makes sense in my internal schema, like, I will consider it and then I will perhaps comply with it. But if there's like a social rule that I like, you know, obviously I'm not going to bring harm to people. But if something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to do it.
And sometimes the reasons for a good enough reason to do something that seems stupid is because other people really would like you to, and it makes them uncomfortable if you don't.
Yes.
For me, that's fun. And I'm lucky that that's always been the case for me. But there has to be that explanation.
Pretty much.
I had a coat years ago. I had a coat that I wore for many years, and the sleeves started falling off. And it was still perfectly warm, so I didn't care. But as I moved through the world, acquaintances and friends, every single one of them was like, your sleeve is falling off your coat. And then I'd see them the next time and they're like, your sleeve is still falling off your coat. And then finally I was like, is this just going to bother people until I fix the sleeve? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I guess, you know, rather if my choice is constant sleeve rhetoric or fixing the sleeve, it's a pretty clear decision.
That's the best metaphor for it. Constant sleeve rhetoric. Because there are certain things that I refuse to change. Like, even on the last podcast that I did, I got comments constantly. My laugh is apparently very divisive, because if you're speaking of topics that are not, quote, funny, or if you are speaking intelligently and you are a femme, if you laugh, that is apparently straight to jail for you, because then you are frivolous and silly and therefore cannot laugh. And I'm like, but I find so many things delightful.
You do.
And so I'm like, why would I not laugh? That would be so strange. And I was just like, much in the way of the sleeve rhetoric, I was like, I'm going to let other people be bothered by that. I'm going to let other people be bothered by the fact that I'm delighted by stuff. Whereas like if, each time I was in conversation with someone, I might modify maybe how I laugh if they were offended or if they thought I was laughing at them or something like that.
Well, like every mental health professional I've ever seen says humor is the best coping mechanism. And so I'm like, why, Pam, as a mental health professional, you can confirm or deny?
Yes, I very much. I mean, I would say in my sessions, I do my best to meet my clients obviously where they're at. So if my client is not responding at all to like any kind of like humorous affect, I'm obviously not going to do that. But I find that for the most part, even when my clients are going through something that is like horrific, that if you guide them through the dark, truthy place with levity, it makes the journey in the dark, truthy place easier. You do not need to make the dark, truthy place any darker. It already is dark enough. So it's like you don't need to make things more like, I don't know what that is. That was very Andre the Giant. It's very Young Frankenstein. I made a yummy sound. Like, dark.
It's a sound of wordless screaming.
Yeah. That was the most audible bicep kiss. That was amazing. But yeah, I feel like we can approach topics with a mixture of levity and weight, because I'm just like, things are already weighty. You don't need to make them more so. And so it's very strange.
You just dissociate heavily.
And for everything else, there's dissociation.
It's like Xanax, but it comes from the inside.
Right. I mean, and this may be a controversial clinician position. Obviously, I do not advocate for unwitting dissociation. That can be very disorienting. But we dissociate because our bodies intuit that what we're going through is actually too much for us to handle. And so it kind of like yeets us out of there. It's just like, helicopter to safety, goodbye. And that our bodies are actually pretty good at trying to keep us safe. Like that's why that's a function. And so if you can consciously understand why you're doing it, then you can also choose different ways to like soothe yourself if you feel that coming on. And there are times where like if you are in something that might cause horrifying trauma, dissociating is a great idea. Like if you can consciously, like it's one of those more like if you're driving that car, like I advocate for knowing when to drive that car as opposed to if that car is driving you. That's when I'm like, oh, that's a problem. So, yes.
Or like long airplane trips. I'm like, I can't smoke. I can't move around. I'm just stuck in this metal tube. I'm pretty scared about it, but there's nothing I can do. And I just check out. And people are like, how was your flight? And I'm like, well, I was there and I'm here now. So
you're like, I'm sure it occurred.
Fine.
I love them.
Yeah. What do you love about planes?
I just, do you know what the strangest thing is? I've, well, maybe not the strangest thing we've heard this day, but I love being in my dissociation little tube box and being all safe and having things in little packets. But I also love going to the airport, because what I just want to do is run my entire life like I run me going to the airport, because I have never in my life missed a plane.
I've never missed a plane either.
Yeah, but it's like everything is, we did it.
Wait. Look at my elbow, Laurie. Look at my elbow. There's the trick.
This is comfortable. This is what friends do. Yeah.
No, what I was thinking about and how it dovetails with what you said is that discovering this about myself helped me understand why I felt like in some ways there were especially friendships that I had that were particularly close and good and I felt really good in, but that I particularly struggled with romantic relationships because of exactly what we were talking about, the trope of it all. Yep. Is that I would become a trope to someone, but then I would feel either inherently like unknowable or illegible, or like somehow that something it wasn't that I was like inherently bad. It's just that I was inherently unknowable.
Yep.
And like this weird mystical creature that apparently was so complex that like no man could ever hold. And so like that, and so it put a lot of distance between me and other people. And also it led to me feeling a lack of vulnerability in my relationships, where like I got so good at mirroring other people that they felt very close to me, but I did not feel close to them.
That's so interesting. I'm not good at mirroring other people in that way. So
and I love you for it.
Oh,
it makes me so happy. You are so purely Laurie at all times. It is a delight.
Yeah. Sometimes I try to mirror other people, but when you're doing it on purpose, it comes across deeply creepy.
Oh, it comes across very uncanny valley if you're like purposely, because then someone's just like, are we playing what game is this?
I'm just trying to match you. It said in the book that I should.
I'm trying to match your energy. I'm trying to match the vibes.
What is the vibe?
Speaking of obscure special talents, I have this unfortunate and not under conscious control knack for mimicking the mannerisms and vocal intonation of people.
Constantly. Same.
So if I'm trying, like if I'm like telling a story in like a group where like someone knows that person and I'm trying to be very vague and I'm like, they were like, and then I say what they said and I say it exactly the way they would, and then the game is over. Right. They're like, oh, so and so. So I just have to avoid that entirely, except with like very close friends on subjects that are safe.
Yeah. I have to consciously, because I didn't realize for a long time that I inadvertently would automatically mimic people's accents, their patterns of speech. Yes. And like I'd accidentally offend people because like they'd think that I was mocking them by imitating them back at them. But like, so I have to think to not do that. Like, Laurie, that's why when I quoted your question back at you, I did say it in your voice, but I'm not going to talk to you in your voice all the time because that would be weird. Laurie once very kindly asked me, very earnestly, a friend of ours had been upset when we walked in the room, and I noticed they were upset, but Laurie did not realize they were upset. And they asked me afterwards how I knew. And I was talking about some of the sensory cues I got, but then I said, I got a vibe. And Laurie just very kindly just goes, Pam, what's a vibe?
Oh, that is eerie.
Oh no, that's not how I sound.
I'm sorry, Laurie, it is.
In my brain, I'm very imposing and
terrifying.
Pam,
what's a vibe?
What's a vibe, darling? It's like, no, I was raised in the woods by aristocratic hedgehogs. That's why I'm very fancy and I like my little fancy things, but have no table manners.
From now on, whenever I hear your voice in my head, it will be like, Pam, I'm a fancy hedgehog.
That sounds like Patty from Absolutely Fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. But I'm the same where I have to consciously not do that. Because it's not on a conscious level that I am mirroring. But I do that emotionally. I do that with gesture, everything. And it's like, I don't mean to. I think it's just my brain is just like, ooh, a pattern that we recognize. We will enact the pattern. Run pattern script.
And in work with clients, that like emotional kind of empathetic mirroring can be really useful.
Yes.
But it's also like it has to be under conscious control.
Yes, because Laurie, you asked me that last night about like affective empathy, because like for instance, I'm an easy crier, but I'm an easy reactive crier. But I'm not an easy actual upset crier. Like actual like sad upset cry, very rare for me, and catastrophic when it occurs. It's like a once every year, just kind of like to release the hounds. But like it's very it's very infrequent, whereas both my laugh and cry response very, very active to other people, but it doesn't feel like my own emotion. It's like I can feel what they're feeling, but I don't ascribe meaning to it or the story. I just feel the thing that they appear to be feeling, and that's fine. But Laurie was just like, what on earth is that like?
Yep. It's really like, and one of the things about my diagnosis, sorry, I'll move this closer to me. one of the things about my
Thank you.
diagnosis and this whole journey for me has been just understanding in a new way how different other people's experiences are. It's like if you grow up your whole life, you're red, green, colorblind, but you don't know what it's like for, sorry, let me say that again. It's like you grow up not knowing that you're red, green, colorblind. So you assume that that's how everybody sees things and you don't understand how you're coming across. I really didn't know, and I still don't know what it's like, but I can imagine it. I didn't know that so many people really felt the feelings of other people in their bodies physically when they were around them doing it.
Yes.
Or like had this as an extra sense. I don't have that. I can tell things. I'm going to mangle this, but there's a little bit, I feel like I'm slightly daredevil in some ways about it, in that I pick up a lot, I notice a lot of things.
Well, you have great cognitive empathy. There's two kinds of empathy. There's affective and cognitive, and you have excellent cognitive empathy.
Empathy is a very strange thing, which we should do a whole issue about. Because
I would love that.
It's, the actual word only started to be used to mean anything close to what we use it for now about 100 and some years ago. And words create concepts like this. And still, a lot of people mean different things by empathy. Now we have the language of affective empathy, cognitive empathy. And it was previously used to mean more what we think of as sympathy.
Right.
It did not used to be seen as quite so important to feel correctly about what other people felt. But maybe this just wasn't articulated in the same way. I bookmarked in my head to go down the linguistic path of I was like, because I know that I know what pathos and the nuance of meaning of that in ancient Greek, but I was curious about the different prefixes of the sim and m and that, but I want to put it together more cohesively than just, I feel like the math lady meme right now. But linguistics of, there's this really, the cultural politics of emotion. I'm really, really interested in a lot of the writing about this. And I think it's the internet that has made this sort of discourse happen, because before everybody was able to communicate with each other on a similar level, it was impossible to have the amount of access that we do now to other people's interior worlds.
Right. I was like, let me hold those thoughts, because I was curious why you asked us about like why we found it so important, and now I'm like, I want to know why Jess found it so important.
Yes,
I accept that challenge, but first I wanted to say that I think part of why the manic pixie dream girl trope was so attractive for heterosexual white men is we have their emotions for them.
Interesting.
Yes. Just a thought. I'm not sure.
We are the cipher of their feelings.
Yeah.
Because we are the vessel that mirrors back and contains all the feels, so that they do not have to process the feels. We can whimsy them away for them.
Jess, do you have a similar experience to Pam in terms of being able to mirror people?
Broadly speaking, yes. The finer points include like the way that I was raised. My main parenting parent wasn't really good with emotions, emotional displays, appropriate labeling of emotions. So it took me undergoing specific therapy to learn, when I was told I was proud, that was actually shame. Things along those sorts of lines.
Goodness.
And once all that got sorted out, I became very good at reading people's emotions, because I can feel in my own body the sensation, and it's like a little like muffled, which is how I know it's not mine.
Right.
And then from there, now that I know which feelings are felt where and what the right word is for each set of sensations, it's shockingly easy to be like, oh, you're feeling this. And maybe it's not an appropriate time to tell someone what they're feeling. It's hardly ever an appropriate time to tell someone what they're feeling. Possibly never.
I have
mean I don't
discovered
do
only
it
if they
sometimes.
inquire. If they inquire, I will reveal. But otherwise, that was something I had to learn is because I don't know the context of what they're feeling. Like I'm not a mind reader. I'm not telepathic. I don't know their thoughts. I can only feel what they're feeling, but I don't know the context. And so if someone's just feeling something and I feel what they're feeling, they don't want you to tell them that. That makes people feel then weird. Mm-hmm. I learned that through unfortunate experience.
with the caveat of I found it very useful for me to be able to feel that someone is frustrated and do a little, I think I frustrated you, but I don't understand how. Can you please explain so I can rectify, apologize, change the behavior, like whatever is necessary.
Yep.
Yeah, that's often what I'll ask is I'll say something like, "Oh, I feel as though something changed between us," or something like that, like almost a vagary, so that way I can troubleshoot, especially if it's like something that I used to presuppose it was something I did, but I have now learned that about 99% of the time it's like not something I did. So it's not actually something I can change, but it gives me information. And if it is something I did, like that 1% of the time, then I can put in good effort to change whatever that thing is.
So jealous. Because like for me, it just comes across to people like I don't care.
Oh.
Because I don't notice when they're sending out all these little signals. And I don't do, particularly with relationship stuff, I don't do the work that everybody's meant to do in like drawing out men's feelings and drawing out what people are meant to, having the feelings for. I can't do that. I can't do that because I don't know what you're feeling. I ask a lot and I love it when people tell me and I try and work it out, but I don't know and I can't do it.
Well, and that sounds like it's especially frustrating if someone has poor skills explaining how they're feeling, because then both of you are in the dark.
Mm-hmm. It's very useful if somebody is willing to be, and I'm fascinated by what people are feeling is the good part. I think it's one of the reasons I'm a journalist. I really want to work out why people do what they do. And with everybody I know and everybody I meet, I'm like, why did you do that thing? And I think probably it's because I'm missing this. What you both described is completely alien to me. You may as well be describing a color that I can't see,
right?
Or a taste of how people taste coriander and it's like soap.
Oh yeah, like some people are like, delicious, put it in salsa, and other people are like, get away from me.
It's like I don't know, and I don't know how my life would be different if I had that, but I'm starting to work it out more and more. Have you both? You're both familiar with the double empathy problem?
Yes.
Do you know this, Jess? So double empathy, for anybody listening who doesn't know about it, it is the most tragic thing I think about the neurodivergent experience, and it's only recently become discussed with this language, partly because it's recently that neurodivergent people have been centered and neurodivergent researchers have been centered in this discourse.
Yes.
So what it is that it was previously commonly thought that neurodivergent people just didn't have empathy. They didn't care about other people. And also that maybe they didn't have feelings in the same way. And it turns out that neurodivergent people largely have the same capacity for emotion. Sometimes they're incredibly sensitive, but it doesn't translate to other people, to neurotypical people, and neurotypical people don't translate to us often, although it sounds like for the two of you, the translation problems are more in one direction than the other. But the difference is that especially if you have a read on your situation, neurodivergent people know that they can't understand other people in this intuitive way.
Right.
And other people don't. So people without that language, they read your behavior as something very different from what it is. Like they read, and I've been very interested lately in the morality of that. And maybe this is just something I'm going through myself, but I'm thinking, look, if I've accidentally been making people feel like I don't care about them for decades, how much does it matter that it was, I think it matters that the intention was different. And I didn't know because I didn't understand that other people needed something different from what I needed. But it's the double empathy thing makes it, people don't understand quite how hard it is for neurotypical people to empathize with us. And that's one of the things, it's the thing that makes life so difficult for neurodivergent people, particularly neurodivergent women and assigned female people, which is, the fact that you cannot. One of the studies I read said that with a list of what neurotypical people's experience of neurodivergent people was, it was like, we don't like these people, we don't know why, but we do trust them, which is a very dangerous combination to have. Because if you're trusted, people aren't actually scared of you, really. There's just something off, and it's the lack of that sort of empathic bridge. But the corollary is that neurodivergent people generally can understand each other just as well as neurotypical people.
We actually have been shown to have better communication within our group than within basically neurotypical to neurotypical. Okay. Neurodiverse to neurotypical, kind of dodgy. Neurodiverse to neurodiverse, we've actually been shown to have far better intimate communication with each other and accurate communication with 100%. Each other than any of the other combos.
As you would if you're looking out, because sometimes, like I think one of you said, that like trying to read people's feelings isn't always accurate.
Right.
And it isn't always accurate you don't know why they're feeling a thing. If you're relying on that primarily, I think it can give you this is the most autistic thing I've ever said. I think it can give you some misleading information.
Yes, correct. Well, like we were talking about last night, there was an interesting study, which I will find and link in the show notes, about that particularly autistic individuals communicate information first and emotion second.
Right.
Whereas neurotypical communication leads with emotion followed by information. And so essentially we're going in two different directions. And so neurodiverse people will start bonding and forming trust by sharing information with each other.
Info dump is a love language.
Exactly. And the more we're like, wow, this person is talking about something that stimulates me, I feel closer to them. Now I feel comfortable sharing my emotion. That's why neurotypicals have small talk, which for us, we're like, the content of this is stupid. I don't feel like I trust you because you spoke about football. Like, why would I feel emotionally close to you? Whereas for them, it goes the other way, where they want to have an emotional experience of proximity so that then they can share information. And it's like this completely opposite direction thing. And Jess made a big gesture. So I was like, Jess.
I did. Because also in the information sharing, we're verifying the sanity and safety, right?
Yes.
What information do you believe is true? Oh, I also believe that is true. Okay, we are living in the same reality. Okay, great. I can feel a little safer now. Yeah.
Is that us or neurotypical people?
Us.
That is us.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because like neurotypical people, that's why they have these scripts of pleasantry, is that those are the things that create the emotional bond, so then they feel more intimate and share information, whereas we share information so that then we can share emotion. And so we come across as being cold, info dumpy robots, when really that's our test mode before we're squishy weirdos who high five. So
I often, even a lot of the people I've dated have been men with mild to moderate ADHD, as best as I can kind of guess, like as far as the effect it seems to have in their life. And constantly, and it's annoying with them and horrifying with neurotypicals, I'm like, I open with a fact. And then all sorts of assumptions happen about my feeling. And I'm like, I actually don't even know if I have a feeling about this fact. We have to get on the same page about this fact.
Yes.
But they've already gone off. They're like, I am so sorry that I upset you. I hope I haven't ruined your day. And I'm like, no. All I said was there's a beer bottle on the counter. And then I was going to follow up. Once you had confirmed the beer bottle, follow up with, am I supposed to do something with this? There's no feeling necessary.
That part, that is one of my bafflements of communication, where someone ascribes an emotion to me that I'm not feeling, and they're like, but you must be feeling it because other people feel this way in similar contexts. And I'm like, that's so exciting for other people. And then when I share my interior landscape, they're like, can't possibly be, must be lies. And then I actually do feel the emotion of annoyance, because I'm being told I feel a way that I'm not, and then I'm being told that my reporting of my interior world is inaccurate, and I'm just like, now I am annoyed. Now it is correct that I'm annoyed. Prior was not annoyed.
You spoke it and made it so.
Exactly. I'm just like, it's like, then I get annoyed at like the illegibility is how I'd put it, because, and I was saying to Laurie last night that it's like, sometimes I have the energy to like really perform an emotion, or occasionally I will be overwhelmed by an emotion, but yet again, that's very rare. But otherwise, I will simply describe often what is happening internally, or describe an emotion. And to my fellow goblin humans, y'all are like, yes, that is correct. You've told me that you're feeling that emotion, so you must be feeling that emotion. Whereas a neurotypical people is like, is it code?
Yeah. People think that, I mean, as a writer, look, I've spent my life trying to find the exact right words to describe what's happening for me, what's happening for other people. And I have found, it's one of the reasons that I can maintain really close friendships with a lot of text messages. And I have a lot of friends like both of you who live in different countries. But people, it turns out, even if you find the exact right words, people still don't believe you in person, because they're looking for all the little signals that are meant to go with them.
Right.
They never listen to the exact words.
Yes.
And so you're always saying something that you don't mean. And if it's not there, they'll look for something else. And it's really frustrating, and I think quite stupid, honestly.
I agree.
Look, other people, neurotypical people are very weird. Everybody's very weird. I'm fascinated by why people do what they do.
Like, I spent time picking out this gift of words for you. Yep. I've chosen them so carefully and accurately to convey to you the thing. And you're like, it's basically like they took the gift and they're like, I'm going to throw this gift away and look for the secret instruction manual.
There's
and
no
you're like, I gave you the manual. I just handed it to you. You threw it in the trash.
I've studied classical rhetoric. Is that I can read Latin. I can't read a room. But I can read
Latin. I can't read a room.
Yesterday on a podcast with a neurotypical host, as best I can tell, she used a euphemism, and it's been a week. It's been a very hormonal week, and all of my ability to like mask and participate just left me. And I was like, I'm sorry. Could you please rephrase? I don't parse euphemisms well in the moment, and I believe there was a euphemism. And she rephrased with like 50% less euphemism. And then I was like, oh, so what you're asking is whether fantasies, BDSM related or not, could possibly lead people to corrective experiences that may help them heal sexual trauma experienced in the past. And she was like, yes. And I was like, I am alien. I'm so sorry.
What was
I was like, wait, that was such a great question. I want to do an episode on it. Both Laurie and I had the reaction of like, oh, tell us more. Like that sounds so like specific and down our alley. Yes, what?
That's so interesting. Well, like metaphor. You go ahead.
The short version is BDSM is not therapy. You can really fuck yourself up that way. So I just like, that asterisk has to be included with any discussion.
Of course.
Even if it's just like a little hint. But yes, that said, please continue.
I love Jess Boyle's things. The Jessica Précy is wonderful. I remember, we do not have to put this in the final thing, but I remember the first time we met that wasn't at Molly's. So I remember the first time I interviewed you, and I asked you, like, because I actually didn't know what the precise distinction between hardcore and softcore pornography was. And you went, and I'm going to do this, please hold this. This is what happened. Bear in mind, we were in a cafe, and you went, softcore, hardcore. And I was like, I get it now.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was perfect. So perfect.
I think that was during a very like pants, slacks wearing sort of part of my life, but I would absolutely believe I did it in a short skirt too. Like,
I can't remember exactly what your outfit was that day, but it was fantastic because I remembered it's one of the few times when I've seen the thing actually happen in real life, where somebody walks into a room and the room goes quiet. Because I was just like, like on an advert, you know, which is like, actually,
I want Jess to swan into the room. Jess, can we teleport you so you can swan into the room?
Oh, I wish.
There is something off that, though. There is. I saw a TikTok lately. Actually, no. Tell you what. Can we cut that? I'm going to start this thing again. Off that, there is something that's. I think it's hard to talk about when you're talking about yourself, but I'm going to try anyway because I think it's an important part of this whole conversation. There is this particular thing that happens when you are a highly neurodivergent femme or female person who is in any way normatively attractive. Because it feels to other people like you've tricked them. It feels like you've tricked them. Like,
Yep.
There are things that there are some behaviors. Gender is also my special interest, it turns out. I've been writing books about gender and sexuality and feminism for a long time, and watching how the same behaviors work differently among people with different neuroatypical presentations. But it's not just gender. I think
weird rich people are eccentric, and weird hot people are quirky, and weird people who have neither of those things. Weird smart people are mad geniuses, and people who have none of those things are just excluded from society.
Yes. Men can be mad geniuses, and people who are neither like normatively hot or of a high, and you can see me as a British person, like I can't believe that I don't have this affective empathy, but somehow I have this ingrained British thing. I can't say those words. I can't say the class words.
That's fascinating.
Those are bad words.
That is fascinating. And I was like, oh, I have a tangent. Also, I was sitting on my leg in a weird way and I can't feel my foot.
But actually, just on the plane out here, I was having a very bad shutdowny time for various reasons, hadn't slept in the airport. And I was like, you know what? For the first time ever, I might do this. And I went up to the security guy who was running the long queue, and I said, I didn't say I'm autistic. I said I have an autism condition. I don't know why I said
I have an autism condition.
I don't know why I put it that way. It feels a bit Victorian and fainting.
I don't know why
I love it.
I don't normally say it that way. But
I love it.
He was like, oh, right. Well, in that case, come to, and there was this whole process they put you through, and they took me up to this, to the separate queue, the separate security line. And it turns out that it was also the security line for posh people who were, as I was saying to Pam, they were behaving in a way that I would expect of a neurodivergent friend having a really bad day. Like there was this one woman, and I was trying to tell, but I think she was just posh. And she had this designer bag. I think it was Gucci or something. It was one of the shopping bags. And it wouldn't fit in the tray, but she was really, really not happy about the idea that she might have to open this carefully gift-wrapped thing. And she was holding up everyone getting into a big flap. And I'm like, oh, you can just behave this way if you're posh. Like, and the people working the security system, like, you would not have got away with that behavior in the normal security queue. But these people were just like, it's rich people. This is how they behave. This is the downside of working on this line. It's really, really true. The class behaviors.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that. Where my brain went was I was thinking along two train tracks. One was what Jess was saying about, especially in regards to disability, that disability is contextual, like what we have is considered a disability because of the context that we are in, but that people with similar disabilities within this context are granted grace and resource based upon their likability, like whether they are normatively attractive, whether they are considered likable, but that everybody does deserve care, whether they are attractive or likable.
100%. Exactly. Yeah. I remember going to nobody should take me on a date to a benefit gala. And nobody apart from this one person has ever been foolish enough to try.
I wish I had filmed this. You haven't even told the story yet, and I'm like, yes, go on.
I had my bright red hair and I have no table manners. I don't know what this guy thought he was about. He was in the band of the benefit gala, and it was a kind of a posh thing for like local theatre things, and they got all these very charismatic kids up on stage to like sing songs about the local theatre, and I got really upset. But firstly, because like you shouldn't make little kids sing for money.
Sorry,
you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Straight to jail.
I think I was just like going like, this is disgusting. It's just like you're just making these little, like, most of these little kids were not white. Most of the people at the benefit were, and they're making these little kids sing on stage about how happy they were to be getting these people's money. And
this feels like an episode of The Good Place.
It's just a normal benefit gala, apparently. But then I was like, so much in America is done with philanthropy in particular. And my sister works in philanthropic giving, and I kind of have found out more about it. And I'm like, but what about the homeless junkies? Like, they need money just as much, sometimes more. And they're not ever going to be able to sing and dance and be nice to people who are in higher social positions than them like that. It's really, but yeah, like a lot of my own life has been, in retrospect, geared around finding ways to survive that aren't that don't need me to be likable. I haven't really managed it that well, but it's been easier. Like, that's what I've been looking for in some ways. And I think there's not a lot of work. There's increasingly few jobs and ways to live that don't require you to be generally likable.
And I feel like there's a huge difference between likable and like being a kind and decent human being.
Absolutely.
People.
You know, I'm not talking about that at all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Neuroprovocateurs. Please join us on Substack, where you can find exclusive clips, resources, and community of the neurospicy variety. We are an independent podcast, so know that your support on Substack and beyond means the world to us, quite literally. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave us 5 stars and glowing reviews, and follow our podcast on your preferred podcast platform so that you can be sure to get each episode the moment it drops, and know that your reviews help us get in front of other people who might also want to listen to this podcast. We are on social media in all of the usual places as Neuroprovocateurs. Thank you again, and excited to see you for our next episode.